Dr. Shanta Morgan, successful alumni of Department of Electronics and Communications Engineering. She had 20 years of experience focusing on mission critical systems to support semiconductor and other high value added manufacturing. She completed a Doctor of Philosophy in Operation Management from Tepper Business School, Carnegie Mellon University. She is a member of Society of Women Engineers and Carnegie Mellon Women's Association. Her first book, Roots and Wings, was published in 2018, which contains the inspiring stories of Indian women engineers. She co authored the book Demystifying Artificial Intelligence for the Enterprise in 2021. In May 2022, she authored a book titled Leadership Lessons with the Beatles, which focuses on leadership. Fun fact, it was named after the famous music band Beatles.
When I was writing the book on leadership, one of the chapters there is communication because it is a key skill for any of us, especially for leaders. You are all going to become leaders. You know, that's the reason why you are, doing your MBA. You're going to grow up in your careers and become great leaders. And for you, it's important to think about communication in different ways. And what I have done is to create a framework where I divide the communication types into three. One is purpose, another is platform, and the third is the channel. Purpose is formal or informal. When you think about talking, there are times when you have to be very formal. For example, in a workplace, while you're giving feedback to your reports or to colleagues, or when you're writing reports, all that is formal. Informal is when you are casually having a conversation with your family, your friends, your community, your even work, some friends. So the way we approach how we do the formal and informal communications are very different. So you have to keep that in mind. Platform could be three different types. There is a big audience platform, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm talking to a big audience. You are the audience, and I'm communicating with you. And there are certain fundamental principles I have to keep in mind when I'm doing that. And then there are small group communication where you may be having a team of 5 or 6 or 10 people, and you have come together to do a brainstorming meeting or information sharing meeting. And then there is one-on-one when you are talking to one other person. It could be in many different situations. One that comes to mind is a meeting you may have every week with your boss, perhaps at work. It may be a project discussion where you are having this conversation with a colleague one-on-one. And then we have channel. You have verbal and non-verbal. Verbal is when you are talking, or verbal is when you are writing. So those are written and oral, right? And then there is nonverbal. And nonverbal communication is so important in the sense that whenever you are talking, it is critical that you are using the right nonverbal cues. By that I mean your body language conveys how you are approaching the topic. And for the person who's receiving the communication, their nonverbal behavior, send some signals to the person who are giving the message as to whether it's being received well or not well. So nonverbal communication is important too. And in the oral communication, we have in-person and remote. In-person is obviously when you are meeting somebody physically and talking to them. And remote has been in the past mostly about calling somebody on the phone. But these days, remote is about meeting on channels like this, where we are in team and we are talking to each other. And there are also other ways we are doing it through instant messaging, through email, so many different ways. So when you are having an important communication, whether it's a report writing or a speech giving, think about how does that fit into this communication framework in order that you can do the best possible job and make it a success. Okay, now we're going to shift gears and talk about generative AI, and I'm going to give you a quiz. Okay, the quiz is this. What is generative AI? So you have 4 choices. Saraswati, can you send them the link?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I will send, ma'am.
Pardon me? So you have about 30 seconds to answer this question.
We have not received the link.
Yeah, we'll share in Google groups.
Has anyone received it or?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet received, ma'am.
Students, please check your Google groups.
Is there a way for you to share that in the Teams meeting or something, Saraswati?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Actually, you are a presenter, no, ma'am, so I can't able to share it on a chat box.
No, I stopped sharing.
Okay.
I stopped sharing, so you could share it in the chat.
Yes, ma'am. Let me do it, ma'am.
Okay. It says chat is turned off for this meeting.
Yeah. Students, please check it in our WhatsApp group also. We shared the link.
Any luck?
Ma'am, can you please share the link on chat box, ma'am?
I am not able to share anything in the chat. It says here chat is turned off for this meeting.
Okay, ma'am.
If it's not working, let's skip it and let's get on with the presentation. We'll come back to it, hopefully, maybe sometime. Yeah?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let me continue. Okay, so I was asking, what is generative AI? Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So the right answer is what? It's B, a type of artificial intelligence that is capable of creating new content, such as images, text, or music. Okay? So let's talk about where does generative AI fit in the big umbrella of artificial intelligence. So all of you are aware what artificial intelligence is. It is creating the capability for machines to think like humans. So it basically getting computers to understand and emulate humans, enabling them to learn, to make decisions and recognize patterns and so on. And under this big umbrella of artificial intelligence is machine learning. Machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence, and it has got advanced algorithms. And unlike, programmers telling machines what to do, they feed the machine with algorithms and data. And the machine learns to understand the patterns, learns to understand how things work, and tries to make a statistical prediction of what would happen. And the machine learning algorithms are of many different kinds. You might have heard supervised, unsupervised, and so on. I won't go into details here. And then we have deep learning. Deep learning do belong under machine learning, except that they tackle more complex problems and they use neural networks. They have levels of networks that talk to each other in order to solve a complex problem. And some of these machine learning algorithms are things that we use every day in our lives these days. If you think about the recommendations that websites such as Amazon or Flipkart may all tell you, those recommendations are all generated because when we interact with the website, we are giving those websites data about our behavior, and using that and the machine learning algorithms, the website then turns it around and tells us, oh, you might want to look at this item, or you might want to buy that item. So we are using these today in our lives, and more recently, generative AI has become the most important technology that has come into being. And what's generative AI? It's a subset of deep learning models that generates content. Unlike deep learning or machine learning, which gives you predictions and makes decisions, generative AI produces new content similar to the kind of things it sees in the data. Not, it doesn't give you the same data that it saw, but rather a new one, depending on the kind of things that it finds in terms of the patterns or the kind of, text that it might see. So that's generative AI. And how does it work? So you have a database of some kind. It's got pictures, it's got text, it's got music, and so on. And when you deal with this data and have these deep learning algorithms that are tuned for addressing the task of producing new content, the user gives the system some prompts. For example, I might tell a generative AI tool, please tell me something about what happened in the ancient world with regard to this particular dinosaur. And looking at the data that it has got, then the generative AI will, through all of its data, and come back and give me a text which has the information about the dinosaur. That is the very simplest form of generative AI. It's equal to doing searches. Unlike a search engine, which gives you a list of sources from where you can read about this dinosaur, what Gen AI does is it brings together all this knowledge and creates a summary of what this dinosaur was about. That is in its simplest form. In a more complex form, generative AI is capable of listening to somebody saying, hey, please create a picture for me in the style of, say, Ravi Verma. And I want that picture to have a girl standing next to a mountain, maybe. So in that situation, the prompt is what the user is asking the Gen AI tool to do. And then the output of that is an image, a drawing, a picture. So generative AI is really about creating new content. And that creation happens because of a few capabilities. And these are natural language processing, which is a subset of AI, where the idea is that you are looking at the language, how it's being used by us humans, and then trying to process it, maybe processing the speech, processing the writing. And then there are large language models, LLMs, which are created to deal with this text that you may be having in your database. And generative pre-trained transformers are special models created by OpenAI, which is the basis of some of the things we see, such as ChatGPT tool. And DALL-E is a capability that is able to produce images which are quite realistic. And in all of these technologies, we see a few companies being very much in the forefront. And these are OpenAI, Bard, which is from Google, Bing Copilot, which is from Microsoft. And in fact, if you are using Microsoft capabilities today, you should be able to use this Bing Copilot. And in a enterprise form, what Bing Copilot allows us to guard your data. And then we also have a smaller company called Perplexity, which has a pretty good Gen AI tool. And Midjourney and Stable Diffusions are the ones that produce images when you ask them to create an image or even a video, for example. So that's the landscape of generative AI. And when we talk about generative AI, we should talk about what are its benefits and what are the challenges. So some of its benefits are that we get increased productivity and efficiency. for example, something that might take us days to do or weeks to do can be done using the prompt to Gen AI tools such as ChatGPT. And it can automate tasks, freeing up our time to do other things. So the benefits are that more efficient way of doing things, more productivity. And the second is improved creativity and innovation. It can create some new ideas and concepts, and people who have not been creative in the sense of, for example, not all of us can draw or paint. You can actually do that. In fact, I have created a few AI images, and a couple of them are in this presentation too. But normally I wouldn't be able to create it, and it got created in 30 seconds. And another benefit is personalization and customization. So if we can tell generative AI a few things about oneself, then it can customize what it produces. And when you have this capability and it's used well, businesses can get better customer satisfaction and loyalty. Reduced costs. It can help businesses by automating so many things that they don't have to hire a huge number of people. For some jobs, this is true because not all skill sets are available in the marketplace, so this may be helpful for them. And because these tools use so much data to come at the results, the decision making could be improved, and more opportunities, new opportunities can be created. So for example, generative AI can help create new drugs in healthcare. It can diagnose diseases, and it can create treatment plans. Even you give Gen AI all the data, and it's able to tell you how somebody should be treated and what medicine they should take. So those are all benefits that we talk about. So what are the challenges? Bias is a big deal. Because the data that is being used to train these models are themselves biased, this can lead to generation of content that is offensive. It could be discriminatory. And this has been proven in many different ways. Starting with somebody being rejected when they are applying for a job. And then privacy and security. Once you give generative AI models your data, that's it. It can be used to generate fake content such as deepfakes. I don't know whether you all have been watching news, but the most recent deepfake problem out there is about Taylor Swift. You all know Taylor Swift, I assume. And so pictures that were created by AI were out there, and it's really so sad how it's being used. And ethical concerns. The data that generative AI models have been trained on, they're all data that have been scraped from the internet. They're all data that are being used without giving credit to the sources. And so there is quite a bit of an ethical dilemma here as to how can we use this technology when it's not built on solid, decent behavior. And it can lead to misinformation because these generative AI models are good at creating things, but they have this behavior called hallucination. Hallucination is about dreaming up things that are really not true. So if I ask a question, tell me some, for example, the quotes that I saw there, if I posed that question to ChatGPT and said, please give me some quotes on communication by important people, it will come back and give me answers which are not true. And that is called hallucination. And that is a really big danger, because what is going to happen is, as all of us start using generative AI today, the way the technology is, and then we start publishing articles written by ChatGPT, we could be putting out misinformation, and that could be pretty dangerous. And we are also now in many countries, and especially in the US, elections are coming, and people are very concerned that we may be seeing many ads and campaigns that are all created by Gen AI and all not factual. So that's a big concern. And then we also have cost concerns. These generative AI models are really energy hogs. By that I mean it's extremely difficult to run these models without a lot of energy. And because it requires so much energy, it requires so much effort, only the biggest of the companies, technology companies, are able to create these Gen AI models. And so it can be a barrier for small and medium sized businesses. Then data availability. You may not always have the right data to create high quality output. And we already talked a little bit about bias, and it's true for even corporate data might not be very clean. So you could be getting incomplete and inaccurate output. And finally, explainability. The results that you get from Gen AI, they are statistical, they're not deterministic, and you cannot explain how these generative AI models created the output. And that might be really difficult when you are using Gen AI for things like, for example, medical treatment. Why is AI telling me that I need to treat this patient with this medicine? How is it doing that? And we can't explain that. So many of these are actually research areas in generative AI, and we might hear more about them further down the road. So the views differ. So there is the optimistic view. We talked about all the benefits, and we also talked about all the shortcomings. The key here is that in the short term, we have to be extremely judicious in how we use generative AI. And in the long term, it is going to bring us a lot of benefits, but we have to be cautious about how we get to that long-term capability. And that's why a lot of people are working on things like, how do we regulate the use? How do we regulate creating these technologies, and so on. So why should you care about Gen AI? When you look at the workplace, business practitioners are currently using AI, generative AI, primarily for research and ideation. And this is probably true in India as well. And many of them are using it for drafting messages and editing and revising messages. So when you have an idea for an article, you could tell ChatGPT, please write an article for me on this particular topic. And whatever it gives you, that's the draft that you could then look at it, put your ideas into it, and then give it back to ChatGPT and say, now edit this. And here's my voice. This is how I write. So look at my writing and tell me how this should be. Sometimes people who use it very frequently, they use it for all kinds of tasks. They say, according to this one study, which I give you the source in this slide, 62% are using it to draft the message, and more people are using it for other purposes, and executives are actively using it for writing messages. So what this says is, this is happening there. This is already out there. And if you want to be successful in your career, you do have to worry about what's happening with generative AI. You can't say, I don't care about it, I'm not interested. You do have to worry about it. And if at all, you should use it very carefully to improve your productivity and your capability. Which brings us to this question: what is prompt engineering? Again, this is a question that I was going to give you as a quiz. I don't know whether we can do it. Did you ever get to the quiz, the previous quiz?
We sent to the students, ma'am.
Oh, I got 108 responses to the first quiz. Let me share that. Let's see. In the meanwhile, let's send the second one off, Saraswati.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We sent, ma'am.
You already sent?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing this one and then share the result of the first quiz. Let's see.
We have not received it. Where have you sent it?
You see this 117 responses screen?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
As you can see, most people answered it correctly, and we had a few wrong answers. But hopefully, after this last interaction, all of you would get it right. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
And I think that for the second question, what does the term prompt engineering mean? Excellent answers with only a few wrong answers. So the right answer is the process of designing and optimizing prompts to effectively guide the behavior of language models. So let's get back to the presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So we went through that question. Now we have the task of defining what do these prompts do and how do we use them. So prompt engineering has to do with giving something to the generative AI tool so it can do whatever we want them to do. And in this use case, you have two ways of looking at prompts. One is as an end user, which is you and me. We use it as a tool to do something. And then there is a model trainer who actually uses it to train the model to make it better. So end user is somebody who uses a language model, which is the underlying technology of something like a chat GPT or Bard. And what does prompt engineering mean to us is that we are looking to create effective queries or inputs to get the desired results from these tools. And we could experiment with different prompts or styles or formats to get what we want. And the model trainer is somebody who uses a similar technique to fine tune the model in its training phase. Remember, the machine learning or deep learning means you are training the algorithm to learn from the data that you give, and it can also learn from giving it some prompts, examples, and so on. So in their case, it's prompt engineering is to make the model the best it can be. So today we are talking about prompts as end users, you and I. How do we use prompts, right? So here's an example. Let's say you want ChatGPT to write a cover letter for a job. You know, you have just graduated with your MBA and you are applying to jobs. And so what you want to do is you want to tell the Gen AI tool what you want it to do, imagining its persona to be you. So you are going to tell ChatGPT, imagine you are a recent MBA management, general management graduate. You are writing a cover letter to a recruiter for the job of entry-level manager. Okay. So when you are asking ChatGPT to do this for you, you have to provide some specifics, your skills, your strengths, and adding supporting and constraining facts. What that means is you can give it the job description, you can give it your resume or CV. You know, it has to be. I always tell my students to anonymize it, meaning don't give your name or anything else that will give away the fact that it's you who's asking for it. You could tell, you know, how long the cover letter should be, the word length, and sometimes it helps to give it a sample of your writing, because when it says, when you tell ChatGPT, write the cover letter, you know, as if you are me, and here is a sample of my writing, it will learn from it and use it. Okay. Now, it is tricky in the sense that the way you give your prompts makes a big difference in how the tools behave. So there is a paper which talks about 26 guiding principles designed to streamline the process of querying and prompting large language models. And the paper gives many such principles, and I took out 2 of them to show you what that means, to give some examples. So there is a principle number 7. Implement example-driven prompting, or it's also called a few-shot prompting. Few-shot prompting means give it a few examples and ask what to do. So here we have the examples, right? Let's say you are asking ChatGPT to do something and you're not using any principles. So I heard some shall I continue?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we are asking ChatGPT to do this. Evaluate the usefulness of the following advice as helpful or not helpful. And the advice that is to be evaluated is, if you have work, just start working. What is the usefulness of this advice? When you don't give GPT-4, which is ChatGPT, any examples, it's going to tell you that it's helpful, which is wrong, right? Just because you have work, you start working, is that a useful advice? No. So now let's look at what you can do with principle. You give one example, which is to improve focus, try meditating for 15 minutes every morning. And the usefulness is helpful. Another advice, if you're sad, just cheer up and think positive thoughts. Usefulness, not so helpful. And then you ask, and then you say, for effective time management, create a to-do list every day. Is this useful? Yes, it's a helpful advice. And then if you give it, if you have work, just start working, it understands what you are talking about, and it says its usefulness is not helpful. So this gives you an idea that when you have the ability to give it some examples, it comes back with the right answer. Otherwise, it gives you something really wrong, something that's incorrect. So that's one example I wanted to give you. Another example is adding to your prompt the phrase, ensure that your answer is unbiased and does not rely on stereotypes. So here is a question to the ChatGPT. Here's a prompt. Explain the concept of climate change and its potential effects on the environment in one paragraph, one short paragraph. And so it goes ahead, it creates a paragraph with, you know, things that you would expect somebody to say about climate issues. But see what happens when you give it the principles. Explain the concept in a short paragraph. Provide an unbiased explanation that highlights both scientific evidence and differing viewpoints. So here you're very explicit that you expect ChatGPT to consider all points of view. And you can see what difference that makes from the expanded paragraph, which talks about how some people say this, but others argue another viewpoint. And you know, it's a much better balanced response. Okay. Now there is a safe usage for generative AI. All these tools come with the ability to turn off chat history and using your data for training. So ChatGPT has this data controls, Bard has this turning off the activity, and then Bing Copilot has the ability to go and delete your chat history. And if you are in an organization such as Anna University using this, it will not even store your history. It will safeguard your data. So always use it wisely. Now that is generative AI, and let's jump to emotional intelligence. I think all of you are probably very familiar with emotional intelligence, and it's about you understanding yourself and understanding how to manage yourself, your self-control, your being able to adapt to situations, you know, how you look at life in general with a positive outlook. And then it's all about being aware of people around you, empathy, being aware of organizational, you know, politics, for want of a better word. And then, you know, with all this knowledge, managing your relationship. So in other words, emotional intelligence is really about how do you approach everything as a human understanding oneself, understanding others, and making life much better for all of us. I was going to ask you this question, so let's skip this because we are already at 1 hour, I think, an hour and some. So I was going to ask you, which of the following best defines self-awareness? You know, go ahead and give the question, Saraswati, but we won't spend time on it. We'll move on to talking about it. Okay.
Oh, okay, ma'am.
So what is self-awareness? It's about understanding your emotions, understanding your effect on other people, how others see you, recognizing your feelings and thoughts and actions. And it's basically a look inside you to see what makes you tick, right? Understand your actions and thoughts and how do they fit in with your values or your internal standards? For example, for me, I believe that I should always keep my commitments. That's my value. And because of that, if I told somebody I'm going to be somewhere at say 8:30, I will make absolutely sure that I will be there at 8:30. And on some rare occasion when I'm not able to do that, I am really questioning what did I do to not meet that standard that I set for myself. So these are all things that have to do with your self-awareness. And how do you develop the self-awareness? We all think we are self-aware, but it's not really true. People say that a lot of us think we are self-aware, but half the time, we are not. So how do you develop this? You can do that by thinking about your strengths and weaknesses, by focusing on your emotions and analyzing them after the fact, and then by trial and error adjust your you know approach to how you deal with things, and analyzing the decisions you make. Why did I do this particular decision as opposed to picking something else? Now, there are tools out there which can help you identify who you are, and big 5 personality test is one of those. This is quite popular here in the US, and I'm not sure many of you may be aware of tools in India. I am not. So I would encourage you to take, many of them are free, so you should be able to take test and see what your strengths and weaknesses are, and how you might look at improving yourself. And you have to also take all this with a grain of salt, because these are all not foolproof tools, but at least they'll give you some idea as to where you are. Some of your workplaces may have these tools available through their HR programs. And self-management is about making use of your self-awareness to control your behavior. So it's about how you manage stress, how you motivate yourself, how do you maintain a positive outlook, how do you control your impulses. All of these will become easy when you are self-aware and choose to work on it. We'll skip this. I think, you're all aware of what empathy is. It's the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. And the importance of empathy for your communication, which is writing or speaking, is that, first of all, by understanding who the other person is or the audience is, you're building trust. When you demonstrate that you know them, then they tend to trust you, and they tend to trust anything that you put out. And therefore, empathy is extremely important for building trust. And having effective communication, extremely important, because when you want to talk to somebody, you want to be able to do that by putting yourself in their shoes and understanding where they are coming from, and how do you approach them, and how do you talk to them. For businesses, it's very important for customer retention. When customers know you, they are being understood by you, and that you're going to do the best for them, you're obviously going to retain customers. And problem solving. Problem solving these days is not a single person task. It's a collaborative effort. And in doing problem solving, you have to come together as a group and when you write, you have to think about how do we make it appealing to the other person who's collaborating with me. And then finally, brand reputation. How do companies look at how they are being perceived in the marketplace? Similarly, for speaking, it's important to do uh, before somebody can hear you and understand you and say that, I know what she's talking about, you have to build a connection. And being empathetic allows you to do that. And for persuading somebody to do something, you have to know where they are coming from. Again, having empathy helps. And conflict resolution and public speaking. So empathy is important for communication. And similarly, organizational awareness. So organizational awareness is what? It's the knowledge and understanding of an organization's mission, values, culture, and external environments. And having this awareness allows you to perform well in your work environment. So what do we mean by organizational awareness? Understanding power relationships. If you know that somebody is very important in your organization, you can develop a relationship with them, or have them be your mentor or your sponsor. You can predict what would happen if you approach a certain person with a certain proposal. Networking opportunities, making informed decisions, and so on. And all of this allows you to advance in your career, have a much better relationship at work, and have increased job satisfaction, and allows for personal growth. So it's important to have organizational awareness. Which brings us to, how do we use all of this in our writing? We have many different types of writing. We have to write when we are using WhatsApp, so instant messages. We have to write emails. When we are presenting some outcome of a project, we have to write reports, presentations like this one that I'm giving you. Some of us are interested in writing blogs, or being on social media and communicating with perfect strangers. Some of you may be in training, in which case you're writing instruction manuals, or giving people the ability to use an app more effectively. And if you are, let's say, writing to your boss about a proposal on a project, or you're writing a proposal to the government for some grant. And finally, resumes and cover letters. You're all going to be in the job market for a long time. And, gone are the days when you got into a job and stayed there. You will be moving, you'll be transitioning, and resume writing, cover letter writing, these are all things that you would do. And I look at writing as something which, if you follow some simple guidelines, you can do a great job. First, read, read, read. If you don't read a lot, you cannot write well. The reason being, when you are reading, you are collecting all the thoughts, and you can reflect on them and try to think about, what exactly did you read? What was it the author trying to say? And by going through that process, you already forming the basis of how to write better. And when you are doing a formal piece of writing, you should plan ahead. You should really decide, how am I going to do this? And remember, we talked about the emotional intelligence. How do I make this particular email sound friendly? How do I make sure that what I'm writing will not offend the person who's going to read it. And be concise. We talked about this very early on when you saw that inspirational quote. Say only a few words, but say it well. And use proper grammar and spelling. This is so simple. It's such a simple guideline, but it makes a big difference. Always proofread. And there are lots of tools for doing this. We'll talk about it a little later. And flex your writing style depending on the situation. You know, how you say things in your writing when you're sending an email to talk about a project is very different from when you are sending a message to somebody showing your support for their present situation. So think about that. Avoid jargons and fancy words. Try to avoid using too many abbreviations, three-letter acronyms. But if you do use them, try to define them first and keep it simple. And when you're writing, use active voice. It's much better read if you say the dog ate the bone versus the bone was eaten by the dog. So these are all very simple guidelines for writing better. And of course, you know, you should revise and edit everything you write, and it comes out much better. Similarly, with speaking, there are many speaking roles that you would have. Perhaps you are chairing an event, you're the MC maybe, you're maybe moderating a speakers panel. When you are in that each of these roles, you have to think about what is it that I'm trying to do. It's not the same thing as, for example, if you are the person who's speaking, you know, you're giving keynote. Whereas when you are chairing an event, you are concerned about the whole bunch of people who are at that event, and how do you make the audience relate to what you're saying. Similarly, with moderating, you have to use your collaborative approach in order to pull the panel members together to create an atmosphere which is friendly to all the people who are on the panel, and also putting them in front of the audience in a way that all of this works together. So your speaking has to reflect the fact that you're relying on the panel to give some important messages. At the same time, you're coordinating them. And all these tasks that you do in speaking is very different when you get into an impromptu speaking situation. And the impromptu speaking is not just about, you know, meeting somebody in a conference and having a conversation. It's also about you going to an interview, and the interviewer asks you a question and they put you on the spot. They ask you, tell me what you think you will be doing 2 years from now, for example. Things like that. You should be thinking about how you might approach that speaking role. The evaluating and feedback role is extremely important for anybody who is leading a group of people. You have to think about how your evaluation comes across to the person receiving the evaluation. You have to bring to bear all the emotional intelligence learnings that you had to dealing with a situation where somebody is not performing well, and your job is to convey to them what's going on and how they can become better. And it's a very, very challenging speaking role. And then finally, if you are in the audience, such as now, you're out there either in the auditorium or on the web, how do you question the speaker? For example, me, and how do you respond to the speaking or the lecture? If you're a student, how do you interact with your teacher, for example? And again, there are some very simple rules. Be very clear when you speak and keep it short and sweet. Have an engagement with the person you are talking to, whether it's a big audience or a small group, and use your body language. It's always important that you not only speak with your voice, but also with your body. Sometimes it's much more impactful than if you just, sat there or stood there with no movement at all. And voice modulation, it's a very effective way to catch the attention of the person you are speaking with. You could lower your voice, make it higher, whatever that may be. That has an effect on keeping the attention of the person you are speaking with. And then finally, preparation. For any speaking that you're going to do, always prepare, because you come across much better when you prepare and practice. And lastly, most importantly, listen. In communication, listening is as important or even more important than speaking. And people will tell you, you should be listening more and speaking less. And that's why God gave us 2 ears and only one mouth. Okay? Now, with all these simple guidelines, let's now get to this topic, the main topic of integrating AI and EI in writing. And I am going to be able to do that with an example conversation. So this one is without mentioning EI, I'm talking to ChatGPT. So the context is you want to send an email to a colleague on a project status report that she shared with you. So what I do is I prompt ChatGPT. I say, please write a paragraph of an email to provide feedback on a software project status report of a colleague at work. So I post this question to Bing Copilot, and it gave me this paragraph. So it says, it starts out nicely. I hope this email finds you well. Thank you for submitting your recent report. I appreciate the time and effort you put into it. I've reviewed the report and I would like to give you some feedback. And then it goes on to say, it was informative and well organized, but there are few areas you could improve. And I think you could benefit from more information on the timeline and milestone. And it would be helpful to include more data. So pretty decent one, right? But the same thing, if you say, thank you, ChatGPT, I am a little bit concerned about this colleague's sensitivity to feedbacks. Can you integrate emotional intelligence into this email? And Bing Copilot says, of course, I will do that for you. And you can see I've highlighted some of the things that it said. I understand that receiving feedback can be difficult, and I want to assure you that my intention is to help you succeed. I believe that your report is a great starting point, and I would like to work with you to make it even better. So compared to the previous one, this is definitely so much better. By itself, it wrote a pretty good paragraph, but with prompting to say, incorporate emotional intelligence, it did even a much better job. So you can also think of roles of AI and EI in writing. For example, you can use AI-powered writing assistants to suggest improvements in grammar, style, how it's structured overall. And you can also do this, a few short prompting, providing examples and asking Gen AI to follow the example. And then you can use your emotional intelligence to look at what it produced and see if it has given the right tone and use the proper language structure, and you can incorporate emotional intelligence into it. Rewrite what AI gave you, give it back to it and say, what do you think about this? And it may give you some additional feedback, or it may say it looks great. And you can also provide Gen AI with examples of interactions that you've had before to analyze, and the kind of things that went over well with the person and the behavior and so on. And you can also use your emotional intelligence by looking at what AI gave you and modifying it and editing it so that it approaches the emotional level that you are looking for. Similar to writing, speaking also has the aspects of AI and EI. So I'm going to bring this back to what we originally talked about, which was that, I am talking to all of you, and for some of us, English is not very easy in terms of speaking. So I'm telling Bing Copilot that I'm going to be talking to some college students, and I want you to, give me the content that I can use to talk to them about. And after I review the speech, I want you to revise it with emotional intelligence infused way of talking. Can you help? So Bing Copilot gave this to me. So it says, in India, English is the language of instruction in many universities and colleges. Therefore, it is essential for students to have good command of the English language. And then it goes on to say, learning English can open up many opportunities. It can help them communicate with people from different parts of the world. Today, everything is globalized, so opportunities are everywhere. You can find them. It can be remote. It can be going to that another country. And it's also pursuing higher education in foreign university. You do have to write TOEFL if you want to go to a US university, for example. So it gives me all these reasons, and it's an essential skill, right? Now, if I asked it to write, give me the speech with EI, and it gave me this with addition of, I understand for many students, English is the second language and may find it challenging to express themselves. They may feel intimidated by those around them when they speak. However, I want to reassure them that with consistent practice and perseverance, they can overcome these challenges. So, pretty good way of integrating emotional intelligence into it. Or you can incorporate EI by yourself, right? So here's an example of giving feedback. So there is a role that AI can play, which is to generate a feedback recommendation based on the performance data. You can give it a prompt and say, here's is the expectation for this person, but this is what they came up with. So tell me, how did they do? And it can analyze and give you some feedback. And then you can modify and personalize the feedback with emotional intelligence, considering the individual's personality, their communication style, and how well they would receive this information, or their emotional resilience. Similarly, you can also use AI to generate development plans based on certain areas of growth that you identify. And you can review that, and you can rewrite how you're going to present that in your conversation with the person you are giving feedback to. So those are some of the ways you would integrate AI and EI in writing and speaking. And this one, I wanted to give you the information on how can you become better at speaking. And I highly recommend Toastmaster International local clubs. I know that you have some in Chennai, and you should probably get your work to perhaps start one in your company and use it to practice. It's a very safe space where the idea is that you come together in a club where you have different roles that you take on either every week or every other week when each club meets. And you have prepared speeches. You have an opportunity to practice impromptu speaking where there will be a person called Stable Topics Master whose job it is to prepare such topics and come and ask the rest of the members. And I think it can be extremely beneficial for you to improve your speaking, which is something that you all expressed that it's hard for you to speak more than writing. And there is a speech club in our Anna University. It's called AU Podium. It was started just in the past, I think it's been 2 years now, where they are coming together as a club to improve the speech. And I, hope you can all, become either members of the club or at least find out what they are doing there and start your own club, if you will. So this can help you with your speaking. And then there are AI-powered tools to help communication. For example, there is a tool called Grammarly. I think many of you may know it. It has also a free version, which I used to use a lot a long time ago. And then I decided to get a paid one, and it is extremely helpful. Just like you, I also am somebody who was educated in school that was in Tamil language. And for the longest time, speaking was hard, and writing, I would be writing in a way that wasn't really very polished, but Grammarly helped me do a much better job. So you should check that out. And then there is a tool called Ori, which helps you with public speaking. It's a tool that is very comprehensive. It helps you prepare speeches. It helps you with impromptu speaking. And check these out. They're out there, and hopefully they're all available in India, I hope. With that, I want to stop. And we have, I think, 25 minutes or so left for Q&A. So I encourage you all to ask me anything you want to ask. Is everybody there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks a lot, ma'am, for the very insightful discussions. So when it comes to AI,
Yeah.
is it that the AI can help where it is more structured, or where it needs to be polished a bit more, or is it that AI can help in solving unstructured, or also in solving not so straightforward approach? Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, yeah, it can do all of those. Give me one example of where you are talking about in terms of solving something unstructured.
So it could be analyzing the current market trends to
Mhm.
identify uh, to identify investment opportunities. I'm not saying the share market investment opportunity, but more for the CEO CFOs to take a decision. I came to know that there is a virtual CEO already there who is supporting an organization. But is it more accessible to common person, or is it more like, quite a bit of investment is required if one has to set up something like this?
No, so you can pose a question to ChatGPT and say, here is you can say, here's the scenario. You can give the realistic scenario, or you can give a fictional scenario and say, what should I do? Now, ChatGPT sometimes doesn't like to answer questions which puts it in a quandary in terms of uh, uh, giving guidance and making that becoming a liability for it. So you have to be careful about the kind of things you ask, but you could pretty much ask anything. In the worst case, it's going to tell you it can help you. Okay. So the rule is, ask it anything you want, right? And look at what it's coming back with and modify your prompt until it gives you something that seems reasonable.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you. I think one of the challenges that is there is that it's in terms of accountability. So at the
Right.
end of the day, it is the humans who take the decision and who are
Exactly.
accountable for the decisions. Yeah. Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. We are not quite where we can say AI is going to take this decision and we are all fine with it. No, we are not there.
Thank you.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Madam, thank you for your insights about this artificial intelligence things. Ma'am, I have a question that suppose if everyone started using AI and start writing with the help of generative AI tools,
Mhm.
suppose say that if some recruiters are recruiting, if everybody started using AI, then it is very
Yeah.
difficult for someone to identify the correct talent, because everyone using the tools, then it is
Yeah.
for the employer to identify the quality, means it is very difficult to identify the best resume, because everything is artificial intelligence involved resume. So for them it is very difficult to scrutinize
Yeah.
somebody having a prompt engineering background and uses that tools. They may write better than who is having a high potential, who doesn't generate AI. In this situation, how this will be addressed, or is anything such things you might have faced it? Just kindly share a thought on
Sure.
it, ma'am.
Yeah, sure. So this is already happening, right? Even in colleges, when people write articles, teachers are saying that, we don't know whether it was the student who wrote this, or one of the Gen AI tools wrote this. So the problem is very real, and the recruiters are uh, sometimes they are using AI tools to pick out resumes, right? And how do they do it? Because there are some keywords that are present, and the way the resumes sounds looks like it's a good one. And if everybody starts doing that, you are absolutely right. You will end up with resumes that sound good, but you may actually overlook some that are actually candidates who are really good. It's a very real threat. Some organizations are using tools to identify whether something was written by Gen AI tool or a human, and are trying to distinguish between them. But even those tools are not quite mature yet. So I think that most organizations which are smart would have a human in the loop to look at resumes, but definitely the first pass, if they put it through some tool, you're going to find that you are not going to make the cut. However, the actual hiring doesn't happen unless you are seen by the people who are hiring you or the people who are going to work with you, multiple interviews. There is tests that's available for you to take if you are in the technical role. So there are many gates that are there before you can get to being hired. However, the danger of not being looked at, your resume not being looked at, is real, unfortunately. And it does happen, I believe.
Thank you, ma'am.
Other questions? Now, did you all see my screen in the last half an hour? I have a feeling maybe I didn't share them.
Yes, yes, ma'am. We are able to see your screen.
Okay. Any other question?
Well, just a quick one. When it comes to finance or operations management,
Mm-hmm.
the use of the Gen AI,
Mm-hmm.
is there any specific read, or is there any specific material which you suggest that we should be having a look at to see how we can utilize these tools to better at work at what we have been doing.
Are you talking about using the Gen AI tools?
Yes, yes. Is there any specific material which is relevant for, say, finance or operations management, which you feel it's like, because Gen AI is an ocean. So it's
Yeah.
like on that, whatever is specifically relevant to these ways of working, is there any
Mm-hmm.
specific material that you would suggest which would be helpful, please?
I think that I would start with asking, for example, Bing Copilot, ask a question. Are there any such material? Specifically stating, operations management or finance. Maybe we will try to do this here. Let me see if I can share. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so Bing Copilot has three modes, more creative, more balanced, or more precise. And I'm going to choose more precise because we wanted to give us precise answers. So I'm going to say, please recommend articles, books, material that can help me understand how I can use Gen AI tools in Okay, so I have asked a question, right? So it's saying it's going to help me. So let's see. The generative AI in operations, capturing value, how to prepare your organization for AI, how to apply generative AI in performance management, and so on, and finance, right? And you can see that it's giving me all this with actually sources. McKinsey, BetterWorks, Resolve.ai. So these all provide insights, but the application of Gen AI will depend on your specific operation or finance context.
Yeah, I think the
See,
fact that it has happy reading in the end seems to indicate that they have blended AI to EI.
yeah,
Thank you, ma'am. This is helpful.
sure. I mean, personally, I didn't have knowledge of all these resources. I do know that if I want, I can get them, right? And the way I can get them is to pose a question prompt, give it a prompt, and it gives me these different ones. Now, could I have done this as a research, as a search in Google? I probably could, but I wouldn't know very targeted ones because it'll give me just a list of resources, right?
Yeah, this also indirectly reduces the need for human beings to remember or recollect lot of stuff. So it's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it is
You're
it is there,
absolutely right.
it is there. I can pick it up. So
Yeah.
the ability of human beings over a period of time, maybe next 25, 30 years, to
Mhm.
really absorb things, to really assimilate things, would
Yeah.
would be greatly impacted, I think, by the AI over a period of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. The thing to know is that don't give up your thinking. Use augment what you do with these tools, but don't give up your thinking. If we were if you are somebody who is not using all these tools, you are at a disadvantage because it has knowledge of so much stuff, and like you said, all this memory that you can put it to use, but never stop thinking for you. That's the most important.
Thank you.
It's so nice to see the auditorium. Yeah, somebody raised a hand. Pretty noisy. Arul Kumaran, go ahead. I saw you raise your hand.
Hello. Good morning, madam.
Good morning.
Yes, madam. Madam, if suppose as a student, should I want to prepare the resume through
Yeah.
AI,
Mhm.
should I need to get the software by paying the amount, or directly will go to the Google and and can able to make preparation of resume? Is this possible?
Yeah, you don't have to pay anything. See, these tools, they're all available free to you. For example, Bing Copilot, because in Anna University, you have Microsoft tools, right? All you have to do is to go to the browser and type Bing Copilot, and it'll take you there. And then it's available to you. You should say, here, I want you to prepare a resume for me. I have worked in such and such a place for so long. My educational qualification is this, and my strengths are this. I'm very good at detailed tasks, things like that, and then it'll prepare the resume for you.
Sure. Okay, madam. Okay.
Just like I was showing you how it gave all the answers for this operations and finance tools, you have to just say, write a resume for
Yes,
me.
the same
Or
thing.
yeah.
Yes. All right.
Actually, I have one question.
Yeah.
But, if I use a ChatGPT, will it give the real-time information?
I think everybody who's not talking will have to go on mute because it's very noisy. I couldn't hear you. Now go ahead. Maybe it was your microphone that was giving all the noise. Want to repeat that question? I see Parthiban raising hand. Please go ahead.
Ma'am, I have a doubt. Actually, with the Chat GPT and other artificial intelligence tool, we are able to integrate with some other works. Like sometimes we are integrating with our Excel and our spreadsheet. So we are feeding it with enormous amount of data. So which in turn will lead to which will make sure that the privacy is not managed, ma'am.
Yeah,
So at some
that's
point of
exactly
time,
right.
it will be owning all part of our data right now, ma'am. So at
Right.
the time of evolving, it might be possible that will it be self-learning tool so that it will be a dangerous one.
Yes, that's exactly right. You bring up a very, very good point. And that's why I was telling you there is a safe way to use these tools for any of us, private people, because we are not, protected. Once you tell ChatGPT something, it's out there. It belongs to ChatGPT to do whatever it wants, put it in the model for training. That's why if you want to be very safe, you always make sure that you don't give your details. Even when you are asking it to write a resume, for example, don't give, uh, specifics. Always anonymize. So for example, if I want ChatGPT to write a resume for me, I would say, I am, Kalpana. I won't give my name. I will give a fictitious name. I will say I worked in company A for 5 years as operations manager. I worked in another company as in a research role for however many number of years. And I graduated from, let's say, a university in Germany, something along those lines. And what it'll give you back are things that you gave it, and your private information is not going to be stored. So you have to be very careful when you're talking about things like the resumes and cover letters and so on. But as I said, you can always provide these, but then tell ChatGPT not to use it as history or not use it in their training. When they initially came out, they didn't have these safeguards to begin with, and they built these. And as we move forward, these tools are going to get much better. And now with something like Bing Copilot, they have this version where they work, where the organizations are using them. So for example, Carnegie Mellon uses Bing Copilot, but every time I go in to use Bing Copilot, it'll tell me that you are using your organization's capability, and we will not store your history, and that is the way we get protected. Because if they don't do that, all these tools, they don't do that, they can't expect people to use them, because it is a real concern that all our information is going to be out there, and it could be used in many, many different ways. And we see the evidence of that even today, such as in the deep fakes that I talked about, like, for example, Taylor Swift's videos and pictures.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning. This is Mohan.
Morning. Good morning. Who is this?
This is Mohan.
Oh, Mohan. Hi, Mohan. Yeah.
Hey, ma'am, would you suggest any quality measurement tool regarding to assurance or the quality of product or the data?
You're talking about the data that you're going to use in AI. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, ma'am.
Off the top of my head, I don't know that a tool like that exists. The reason being, it's a process, making the data quality data for consumption by AI or even data analytic tools. It's a process. It's very specific to the data that you are going to be using. For example, your company may be having many different software systems that it's using for its business, right? ERP systems, CRM systems, and so on. And the data that is available there, by the time you want to use that data in a data analytics tool or an AI tool, has to go through a process of cleansing, harmonizing, and a pipeline needs to be built. So there is, I don't know of any one tool that will do it out of the box for you. There may be tools that you could get and then customize them, but I have been not doing this quality job in a long time. The last time was when I was running engineering, and then we were worried about data and so on, but it's been many years, and whatever I tell you now will probably be all out of date. So again, I would encourage you to post that question to Gen AI tool and have it give you some good answers.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. I'll try to make it, and if possible answers, I'll get it done. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Please.
Good morning, ma'am. My name is Chenani, and actually my question is the artificial intelligence is a challenge for human thinking, thoughtfulness, and the mind of human? Because after using artificial intelligence, people will be come to the same platform. Most of the people, I'm not talking about thinkers. So it will be like a production kind of thing. Means human will be a product, and the output of human will be not it will not be invariant. It will be something like what ChatGPT is providing. And the another thing is whether we can verify the output, whatever is coming from ChatGPT. So, last, in last question, someone asked about the quality of the output from ChatGPT. Whether human should verify it or human can use, or the output from any AI can be used by any other tool, which may come in coming times. So this is my question.
The thing is, I believe we underestimate as humans to do a good job of evaluating what ChatGPT tells us. In fact, I think anybody who has worked in a specific area will have more knowledge and will be able to perform better than something like ChatGPT. In fact, they've got studies which says ChatGPT is useful for people who are starting out. It can give them some suggestions. So entry-level people benefit a lot with ChatGPT, but people who are experienced and people who have expertise in a field, ChatGPT, it's not all that useful. It's not going to tell you something you already don't know, except that it may come to that decision much faster. Because when you have a problem that you need to solve, it may take you, 2 days, maybe 10 days. Whereas ChatGPT can churn out answers in few seconds, minutes. However, if you are an expert and you have experience in dealing with such a problem, you can spot immediately whether something is right or wrong. Whereas a person who's brand new to the job won't be able to do that. And this is why there is the issue of, you put Gen AI out there and think that it's going to do everything for you. You will be so totally wrong. You need humans. You need humans always in the loop to review and identify whether something is right or wrong. I don't know whether I answered your question, but anything else?
Ma'am, the session was really informative. Ma'am, the session was really informative. Now I welcome Dr. Saraswati Ma'am from Center for Distance Education to deliver the word of thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I forgot to say that.
Good morning to all. Today I stand before you with a heart full of gratitude and pleasure. So on behalf of this event, first and foremost, thank to our Honorable Vice Chancellor and Registrar for giving permission to conduct this event. And I would like to thank to our Director, Additional Director, and Deputy Directors of CDE and Karka Director for encouraging to organize this lecture. And a sincere thanks to eminent person, Dr. Shanta Mohan Madam, alumni of Anna University, CEG, who have committed and worked tirelessly for the execution of this event. Madam, your speech about communications is not only inspired us and also left us evergreen on our hearts and minds. At last, I extend heartfelt thanks to each one who has contributed to the success of this event. Finally, special thanks to all participants. Really, your participation created a memorable atmosphere and has encouraged interactions lively. So once again, I thank you all. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you all for attending, and thank you to the organizers. It was fun. I enjoyed doing it. I hope you found it useful.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am?
Yes?
Ma'am, shall we run the session, ma'am?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Shall we end the session, ma'am? Shall we end
Yes,
the
yes,
session?
yes, end the session. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.